I first learned about the story I'm about to tell you about on Willie D's channel, and it literally pissed me off, but it didn't surprise me whatsoever. Then I saw Lisa Cabrera did a commentary on it as well. And thank you, Coca 2005, for sending me the article for about this story. I already knew about it, so I really didn't have to read too much into it. I had already watched the news clipping and whatnot, and I had pretty much got a gist of what it was about. But just in case you haven't heard about it, this man's name is Lamont McIntyre. 23 years ago, he was sent to jail on a double murder charge. Sent to jail, and 23 years later, he was exonerated of the charges, meaning there was no proof or any evidence to show that he was the person of interest who was responsible for that double murder. My guess is they probably already knew who it was, but they still kept him in jail regardless. I'm telling you, that prison industry, that private industry, prison industry complex is wicked as hell when it comes to black people, especially to black men. It's like we have a label on us where we are supposed to be inherently savages and evil and bad and negative, that they can get us on any little thing possible if they need that prison filled, if they need that spot filled, because it's all about money at the end of the day. The prison does not make money unless it's filled. That's just like colleges don't get funding if the colleges don't meet a certain quota. So sometimes they'll accept any and everybody, especially those who are not supposed to, deserving of being there. But anyway, this is not what this video is about. But anyway, he was recently exonerated, and unfortunately, he did not receive one dime of any type of compensation for his time lost in there. That man should have got at least $1 million per year he had to spend behind bars for a crime he did not commit, meaning he should have got $23 million. He didn't even get $23 after walking out of that prison. In the clip that I had saw on Willie D's channel, it said that he's going to learn how to be a barber so he can take care of himself. He's got some lawyers and whatnot, but it said in the state of Kansas, where he was locked up, is one of several states, and I didn't know this, that doesn't offer any type of compensation to prisoners who were wrongly convicted of a crime and then recently exonerated. They probably were banking that this guy would die in there. They knew that he had no money coming his way when he got out, and they were hoping that he probably would have died. He went in, I believe, when he was 17 years old. So this means that this man is in his early 40s now. He lost out on the best years of his life. This man probably, he 17 years old. So that was maybe senior year in high school maybe. That means he most likely couldn't go to his prom. He most likely, couldn't experience having a wife, having children. Well, I don't know what his life was like before he went in. He couldn't spend time with his family. Couldn't take vacations. 23 years at the age of 17. And they love to get them when they're young. I noticed that. It's a pattern. They love to get you when you're young. Take the Central Park 5, for example. Those guys were between the ages of 15 and I think 18. And they were in prison until they got out. The oldest was damn near 30. And I think the youngest was 24, maybe in his mid or early 20s. And they sent them to prison for the murder of that jogger in Central Park. And there were DNA evidence to come back that said that they didn't do it. And then you had the current commander-in-chief try to he didn't try to, he did put ads in the paper to call for them to be put to death, even after DNA exonerated them, and they ended up getting the actual killer or the actual rapist. And I believe the rapist herself, I don't know if she died or not, I can't remember, but I think she even said it wasn't them. Khalif Browder, they said that he stole some kind of electronic device. Sent him to jail at the age of 16, 17. His life was never the same when he got out of Rikers. They sent that boy to Rikers Islands, one of the most roughest prison in America, in the States. Came out, his life wasn't the same, ended up committing suicide. His mother died a couple months later due to stress. And there's so many more stories that we don't know about. But really pissed me off was that sheriff. I forget what his name was. Y'all got to go and watch the video, but his it was I found it. Lead police detective Roger Golubsky. They said he built the case around threatening witnesses to not testify in his defense, so they could send him to jail. That fat piece of shit, who looked like he hopped off of some kind of plantation after he got done whipping or raping a slave, actually threatened witnesses to not come forward in defense of this man in hopes of getting him off. They wanted to send him to jail. They just needed to send a black boy to jail and keep him there as long as possible. And I'm sure that lead detective got some kind of compensation for doing that. This happens more often than not. This is exactly why a lot of black people do not like these pigs, whether they hold a high position or at entry level one. They're not to be trusted. They have proven this time and time and time again throughout the decades, throughout the centuries, if you want to be technical. This man lost out on time. Time you cannot get back. You have to be in the moment. He spent 23 years. Can you imagine? 23 years of your life behind bars for a crime you did not commit. And they probably gave him some whack-ass plea deal. Well, if you serve this amount of time, we'll expunge your record. But if you don't, we'll make you stay in even longer. What kind of plea deal is that? And that's the kind of plea deals they'll give you too. Those two options. There's no option where it says, oh, you can do maybe some probation, or we'll find a way to see if there's a loophole and we'll drop the charges. You rarely, if you ever, hear them doing this with the colonizer. I would like someone to find 5 stories where that actually happened. Because most of these exoneration stories, when it comes to stories like this, usually involve black men for the most part. There's probably some black women out there, but it's mostly black men. They have to find a way to keep black males locked up or somehow in the system. It's messed up. It really is. It's sad. It's disgusting. But I hope that this man is able to function throughout life. I mean, imagine, he went in 23 years ago. That was back in the 90s. He had to readjust to outside life after 23 years being in captivity. That's what I'm comparing it to. Because that's basically what it was. He was basically being held there against his will. He was basically kidnapped. He was held hostage. The only difference is there was no kind of Amber Alert sent for him to try and find him, unfortunately. But I hope, like I said, that he's able to function in life after all of this, because I know it's going to be hard. But based on the videos that I saw, he has a good support system around him. He has a good, team that's going to help him adjust. Y'all let me know what you think down in the comments.